In this video, we're going to be talking about how to use Zapier to connect Google Forms to your Clio account. Now, if you're not familiar with Zapier, it's a great utility. It's free to sign up, and you can run like 5 or 6 zaps or whatever it is they call them to automate certain tasks that are very boring to do on your own. Zapier is kind of like an internet Rube Goldberg machine that lets you connect things like Clio to Google Forms or Google Docs or your email to Clio, things like that, so that when one thing happens in one of your apps, another thing happens in another app. It's very convenient for things like that, so I'd encourage you to take a look at it if you haven't already. So let's go ahead and get started. You'll see I have 3 tabs open here. I have Zapier, Google Forms, and my Clio account. Now don't worry, I don't actually run a law firm with this Clio account, so anything you see in here is actually just test data and nothing that I really care about, and there's no client information in here. So disclaimer over, let's go ahead and get started. So I've gone ahead and created a new Zap as a framework and just hit new on the Zapier dashboard. So this is up, but the first thing that we need to do is create our Google form. And we're going to go over here to our Google Forms account, and let's say we want to create a Google form that we're going to embed on our law firm website where people can put in their name, their first name, last name, and whatever problem it is that they're having. Super simple, not very useful, but you can kind of see where you could build an intake form or some sort of client inquiry form that people can fill out and submit a response to. And when somebody fills out the form and clicks submit, what I want to have happen is add that person as a contact in my Clio account so that I have their information and that I can see that they access the website, and I also want to record what their actual legal problem is. So let's go ahead and name this intake form. Wow, I misspelled that. Form awesome. Okay, so intake form awesome, and we're going to create our questions. Is your first name? And short answer text right there. We can go ahead and duplicate this one. So we have what is your last name there. And we'll duplicate it again. And we'll do what is your problem? And those are our 3 questions. People usually have big problems, so we'll do paragraph for the long answer text. So now that we have our form created, there's one more thing that we need to do before we can hook it up to Zapier. So go to responses, and you see this little green thing up here, create spreadsheet. You want to be able to create a spreadsheet to house the responses from intake form awesome. So let's go ahead and click on that, and we'll create a new spreadsheet, intake form awesome, and it says responses in the parens. Let's go ahead and create that. Okay, so we see our spreadsheet there. So now let's test our intake form. Click send, and let's do just the link right there. And we'll open up an incognito tab and put that in and click go. And then we see intake form awesome. My name is Bob, blah, blah. And my problem is blah. Okay, so submit. Your response has been recorded. Now, testing your form is important just to see how it works. It's also important so you have some test data that Zapier can use to make the connection between Google Forms and Clio. So now that that's been submitted, let's go ahead and close it out. We'll cancel out there. Okay, so we have one response. It's already recorded, and you can see it in our spreadsheet as well. Now, I know you're really eager to get to Zapier, but before we do that, we also need to go to Clio. And you'll remember that we have first name, last name, but we also have a field, what is your problem or legal problem, that is not native to Clio, but we want to record that information as part of the contact. So to do that, we're going to need to create a custom field in Clio. If you're unfamiliar with how to do that, first you go on your menu to Settings, and then you go to Custom Fields, and go to Contact Custom Fields up there, because that's where we want it to be housed. We want it under Contacts. So you'll see that I've already created the problem description field there. If you want to create another field, you go up here to Add, and you can add the custom field and what kind of field you want it to be: a date, email address, integer, which is a number, text, multi-line, one line, things like that. What I've also done is I've created a field for inquiry from website. So I want to make sure that I'm recording in my contacts database inside Clio that, hey, this person is an inquiry from the website. They're not a client. They're not associated with a case yet, but they're in the system because they filled out the form on the website. And you'll see that this is actually a checkbox field, which is stored as a yes or no inside Clio. Make sure you click default on these fields, add them to all new and existing contacts so that they'll show up in Zapier, and so it's easier to manage. You don't have to make them required, but you do want to make them default. Okay, now that we have those fields, we're going to go over to Zapier and start creating our new Zap. So we'll name our Zap intake form awesome. And step one, and Zapier makes life easy, when this happens, and let's choose Google Forms, right? We want the app to be Google Forms. We want the trigger event to be a new response in a spreadsheet, right? Click Continue. Let's choose our account. I've already hooked up my Google account to Zapier, so we'll just go ahead and choose it there. And continue. And then it's going to ask us what spreadsheet do we want it to connect to. You'll remember that we created the spreadsheet for intake form awesome, so that is where that comes in. So it's going to look for what spreadsheets we have. We don't want Animaniacs episode rankings. We want intake form awesome responses. And the worksheet is, there's just one, so it should be the default one. Form responses 1. Okay, so let's hit continue. And Zapier is going to test and see if there's any data in that spreadsheet. So let's do test and continue and see what it finds. Okay, so it said, hey, this is all good. You see the green check mark. And now, once that's done, we go to the do this part. So choose app and event, and you'll see Clio is already connected to Zapier, which was one of the big benefits of Clio and Zapier together. It makes life really easy to do operations like this. So let's do Clio, and then you have a series of actions that you can have happen in Clio. So when somebody fills out the form, we want to create a person contact inside Clio, right? So let's hit continue, and let's choose our Clio account. Let's do that one, and let's hit continue. Okay, so now we want to customize the contact that is created. So you'll see first name and last name are required, and then we have all these other fields that are optional, that are standard to Clio. And then we see our custom fields down here. Remember, we created these in Clio, and they're brought into Zapier as custom fields. So we want to make sure that inquiry from website is something, and then their problem description is something. So let's get started up here with our required fields. So first name, you could type in like Bob here, but the problem is Bob would then be the first name of every contact from the website. What we want to do is pull in whatever the person put in on the form. So click this little dude over here, and you'll see from new response in Spreadsheet, you'll have the response to the question, what is your first name? And Bob and Loblaw here are basically just representing the value that Zapier has pulled in from the existing response. When there's a new response, Zapier will pull in the new value. So put the response to what is your first name, and then the response to what is your last name. So we have that, and for problem description, we want to do the same thing. What is your problem? Inquiry from website, we want it to be yes when it loads into Clio, so that we know that it came from the website. So let's hit continue. Okay, so now it's going to test sending our data to Clio, right? So first, let's see if Bob Loblaw is already a contact in Clio and make sure that he's not. Okay, so you can see we've got a couple of contacts in Clio already, but no Bob Loblaw. So let's see if this works by testing it. So test and continue, and Zapier is going to send that information to Clio and try and create a contact. So it says our Zap is ready, and we can just go ahead and turn our Zap on. So let's turn it on, and let's go and see while it's turning on if Bob Loblaw is now a contact in Clio. And we see that Bob Loblaw is in Clio. So Zapier has sent us a new contact, type person, and let's see, okay, it does say yes, that was an inquiry from website. And if we click on Bob Loblaw, we will see down at the bottom on our custom fields, he's from the website, and his problem description is blah, 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 blah. So now that we have Bob Loblaw, our Zap should be ready to go. So let's try it out. Their intake form awesome is on. You'll see I have a couple of other Zaps, but intake form awesome is on. So let's go get our link for intake form awesome there and copy it. And you'll see on Google Forms, if you want to make this part of your web page, you can embed it in your web page using this code right here. It's HTML code. It's an embed iframe, and it just shows up as a form on your web page, and it looks like it's been there the whole time. So you can do that as well. For our purposes, let's just get the link and open a new incognito tab. And now we see intake form awesome. And hey would you buzz off, and our problem is trees. Okay, so now that that's been submitted, our response has been recorded. We can see, again, now we have two responses, and our Zap is on. So we can check and see if hey would you buzz off is now a new Clio contact, but likely he's not, because Zapier runs every about 15 minutes or so. It's not an instant process. This is a free account. You'll see I still have Upgrade Now up there. And the free account means that Zapier doesn't run all the time. It only runs about 15 minutes or so. And you have a limited number of Zaps that you can make. So one thing that we can do while we're testing this out is we can go ahead and click the down arrow here on our Zap dashboard and hit run and see what happens. Okay, so it's manually running it. It's seeing there's one new item, and Clio create person contact was successful. Right? So let's go over to our contacts and see if Haywood is in our Clio contacts. And there he is. Haywood you buzz off is in our Clio contacts. We'll click on him and make sure everything's right. So custom fields, inquiry from website, yes. Problem description is trees. So that's a really quick tutorial on how to create a Zap in Zapier that connects two things, namely Google Forms to your Clio account. And you can start to see the possibilities of using Zapier in your law practice to do different tasks that you'd rather not do by hand, like if someone submits a form on the website, going in to Clio and creating a contact